It's unexplainable. It's unconditional. It's unforgettable. Unstoppable. And that's so intentional. It's so invitable. Indescribable.
Welcome to His
and Her Perspective.
And here at His and Her Perspective, Vaun, what is it that we do?
Here at His and Her Perspective, we find common ground to harmonize relationships.
Alrighty then, and that's exactly what we do, people.
For that, you have won. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Right. We find a common ground in these relationships by having conversations like we're going to have today. Today, we're going to talk about his, hers, and ours. Let's talk about blended families. I'm excited about this conversation, brother. What about you?
It's a heavy one, but a much needed one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It really is. And I have lots of experience on the inside and the outside. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So listen, if you are looking at us right now, make sure that you're saying something, that you all are also subscribing to our pages, Coach Michelamonè on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Vaun the Love Alchemist on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Make sure that you're subscribing to the His and Her Perspective show at YouTube, as well as on our Instagram page. We can also be found there. But make sure that you're doing that so that you can get updates on any videos that we're going to be putting out going forward, because we're here every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're so lucky to have you. So make sure that you're also saying something. Say hi to us so that we can say hi back. Let us know who you are and where you're tapping in from, and we would love to say hello. Hi, Desi. How are you?
My lovely wife was good.
Yes.
Was good, my beloved.
Yes, so I'm excited. Normally what we do in our His and Her Perspective agenda is that we usually go in and we talk about the couples that are winning. And we're going to do that now. Let me pull this up. I was having some issues with my computer. So how are you doing today, brother, while I'm doing this?
I'm good. All is well. I'm no complaints at all. How are you? You look nice.
I do, don't I?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I had to throw that off.
Hey, shout out to my man Gabe Briscoe from Baton Rouge. Got my man Yardley Bond at the bakery. Was good, family. Thank you for coming.
How you doing? I had to throw it off because normally I say thank you so much, brother, and you look amazing as well.
Appreciate it.
I had to make something. I had to say something else. I am having an issue here. Okay. So, you talked about my janky service over here. I think that you pretty much jinxed it.
Nah. Yeah. It just is what it is.
You know what? Listen.
We can come back to it. Maybe we can do a segue in the middle of the show. Shout out to my man Clayton Cox.
Yeah, because I'm having a difficult time here. I mean, I can't. It's like, no, I don't want Waze. I want the Facebook.
Don't worry about it.
All right. I'm sorry. I can hold up the picture on my phone.
No, you can keep messing with it. And as time goes on, if it comes to you, then great. We'll share it. If not, we'll just keep it moving.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Let's see if it works. Come on. Let's do it. So how has your week been?
My week is good. Look, I finally got another car. Y'all know ever since I totaled my car, I've been driving around in rentals. Yeah. And so I finally went and got me another car. So it's been a good week. We got grandbabies tonight. We're going to take them bowling. And, but it's been, other than that, relatively uneventful. How about yours?
Mine has been good. I am awaiting my children to come here. They are moving here. My son and his wife, and then my daughter. And guess what? They're not moving in with me.
Look at God. Won't he do it?
Look at God. Won't he do it? They have secured their living quarters, and they are coming to be near mama. And
Good.
I'm super excited about that. So I have been dealing with getting packages all week because they've decided that any package that they've ordered for things that they need, especially the new one, because she's never lived in her own place. So she needs everything. So I'm getting packages every day. And I told her I'm going to open them just because they're coming to my house.
Word. Word. You going to jail?
Right.
No sweat though.
Here we go. Finally got it up.
So our couple of the week, couples that are winning. This is Imwalimu and Ya Baruti out of Atlanta, Georgia. So what I like about this couple, the reason that I chose to highlight them, and I could have highlighted them first, when we first started this series. This couple is probably primarily responsible for the turnaround in my marriage.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah. I had a lot of misconceptions and unhealthy ideas about what it means to relate to my wife. And so I stumbled across their information on the internet and bought some of the books. I've actually met and broke bread with them, exchanged some real good conversation. And man, I'm going to tell you that they are warriors on the front line for Black people. So this idea that I talk about with complementarity, he is, as far as I know, he is the father of that thought.
Wow.
As it pertains to relationships. So they've been together, I think, for 35 years now. They have 2 children. Nice. And man, when you talk about putting the cherry on top of the cake that we call Black love, man, they are it. And these are my icons.
I love it. That's awesome. That's beautiful. Congratulations to them.
Salute to Baba Imwalimu Baruti and Mama Ya Baruti.
Beautiful, beautiful couple too. I love it. And it's like when I love how when you highlight the couples that they're not just good together, but they look good together.
Yeah. We ain't highlight no ugly people.
Well, hey, we gotta, somebody gotta have an ugly friend every now and again. But your friends ain't ugly. I know, right?
No, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yes, it is.
Everybody has something beautiful about them.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. I was waiting for Yarley to say something. He must not be on. Oh, yeah, he is. He didn't say nothing about my inflated ego.
No comment.
Right. Listen, so we're going to talk about this his, hers, and ours. Talking about blended families. This is going to be a great conversation. And again, if you're watching us right now, share it to your page, invite some of your friends. I don't think that you can do a watch party on Facebook anymore, but share it to your page because somebody might click on it that may need to hear some of this information. If you have some information that you would like to share that would be helpful to this conversation, also make sure that you comment in the comment section so that we can discuss that as well. Because we don't have all the answers. We have a lot of them, but not all of them.
Most,
yeah. Absolutely. Not yet. You don't have something smart to say to me yet, Yarley? Okay, great. No problem.
My wife said she absolutely adores them. They are a beautiful couple, talking about Imwalimu and Ya Baruti.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Good people, man. Good people.
Yes, they are a beautiful couple. Absolutely.
Let's get into it.
So listen, I want to. Okay. I was my paper is on the printer and I got it in my phone though. I'm gonna just go to the phone so that I don't interrupt the live here. So I have some questions that I want to start out with. If you don't mind, did you have another way that you want to start?
No, let's get it. All
right. So first of all, I have to go with some statistics. They say that 70% of blended families, 70% of blended families end in divorce. And some of these reasons that we're going to talk about today is a lot of the reasons why. Like whose responsibility is it to make sure that things blend well? And is it the original parent of the children that are coming in, or the parent that is being added to that family? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a mutual responsibility. I don't know how you could put any more responsibility on one person than the other. But I will say this, I think that typically the person that's coming into the relationship with a child has more to gain by making sure that the relationship, is harmonious, making sure that it's sustainable. So because they have the most to lose, if things go south. So even though I think it's a mutual or shared responsibility, I don't think that more responsibility can be put on one person than the other, even though one person may stand to gain more or lose more if things don't work out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's up to both parents to make sure that they are forming a united front. More than anything, whether that be a united front on the loving side or the united front on the disciplinary side, because if you don't, things can fall apart. And the reason why the 70% of business blended families end in divorce is because they cannot find that common ground with each other. They're too busy hovering over the children or not. So should you begin blending the family before the I do's, or should you start blending the family in the dating phase, meaning where you're determining that who's going to start setting boundaries, who's going to discipline, who's going to do all those things? What are your thoughts?
So basically you're asking me before marriage, or should it start before marriage? Or definitely. I don't think you wait until it's official before you start introducing, getting to know each other. So absolutely. Because you want to know if you have an oil and water type of situation before it becomes official. You want to know if her son is the type of dude that, you just can't get along with. Maybe he's a teenager and maybe he's going through those stages where he might want to take a bat to his dad. Want to get physical with his dad. You got to decide if that's something you want to be a part of, or vice versa. If it's a daughter and, a teenage daughter and the female as a woman, you're coming into that situation. Is she competing for time with dad? Competing with you for time with dad, and how much conflict does that cause? So, I think you definitely want to, like his first lady said, ASAP. I'd say before you even develop feelings. I'm with that.
And a lot of people, are leery of inviting their children into situations where they're dating, and I think that you should. I actually did it both ways, and in the one that I decided to hold back on, by the time I introduced my children to them, I was about to get married. And so that was like the worst thing to do, because it was just us, me and him. And then all of a sudden it's us as a family. Oh, he wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
And so, because I was thinking, am I introducing my kids too soon? Should I, all those types of things. But there's so many different dynamics that you have to really think about, because, speaking of what you said earlier, do you think that if there's oil and water, that then a deciding factor about the husband or the potential husband and wife, should you decide not to be with that person if there's oil and water between the adult and the children?
So I think that some situations are obviously much more toxic than others, right? And so if the environment is so toxic and so dysfunctional that that there's just too much disharmony to overcome, and you can't find balance in that, I think it's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think that the biological parent of that child, more often than not, they're going to side with the child. Now, whether or not that's right or wrong or healthy or whatever, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what actually happens.
Yeah. And
you find too many scenarios, or you find a whole lot of scenarios where the parent will say something like, "That's my child. You better not tell my child," or whatever, something that shows alignment with the child rather than the spouse, when things really hit the fan. So I think if marriage hasn't even happened and things are already chaotic and toxic, jump ship.
Yeah. Because it's going to ultimately cause a situation between the two adults, where they're trying to come together, and the situation between the adult and the child is going to weigh heavy, because especially with women, what I've tend to see, and I'm not saying it's overall the 100%, thing, but what I've tended to see, even in my clients, is that woman is really leery about letting that man come in and discipline that man to come in and say things to their kids and things of that sort. And I'm asking, why are you even considering marrying somebody that you can't let discipline your kids, or can't leave them alone with your kids, or you don't want them saying anything, because it's going to be issues all the way in the door.
Mm-hmm.
So
Dave Briscoe says, before y'all get serious, I guess he's talking about when should you introduce. Before y'all get serious, I was in my now stepdaughter's life a couple months into my relationship. She was 5 then, 17 now. We are one big family. Her dad and his fam comes and hangs out at the house. We go out to eat together, etc. And see, that's healthy. Yeah,
which goes into another question. What do you do about the exes? What do you do? How do you, make them? Do you make them a part of the family? Do you know that they don't get a say in my house? It's what was the question? What place and role, if any, should the outside parents play in the blended household?
Yeah, they have a stake in that blended household if they have children there. Yeah. But I think, again, now, if everybody's psychologically healthy, emotionally healthy, which, is often not the case. But when you have a healthy scenario, it's not really a problem.
Right.
You have some fathers who, a lot of us are real possessive when it comes to our children. And the thought of another man physically disciplining our child, that can be an issue. And so I think it's imperative that the two men establish some level of rapport, where, they can talk about things, and then they can discuss different disciplines and so on. So, and it's going to vary, because some people believe in spanking, whereas others who don't believe in spanking. So that can create conflict. And the same thing goes for women too. So absolutely. There is some say, but the majority of the say goes with the people that live in that home. Yeah.
I think so, because if you allow that outside parent to run the household, they run the kid, but they don't run the household, because there'll be problems in that. No man or woman wants any other person coming into their household getting to have a bigger say than they do. I remember, with my third husband, I was calling the kid's mother that my baby mama. That's my baby mama. Because we had such a really good relationship that it was not an issue at all. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times it really, like you said, goes into the mind, into the health of the mind, into the health of the esteem, and where you are in your life, to be able to be okay with that. Can come over anytime, come over for dinner, come over and sit and whatever. Didn't have no problems. And again, you have to be secure within yourself to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Shalon, how are you today? Thank you so much for joining us.
Yep. Gabe said, my stepdaughter, highlight that for me. My stepdaughter's dad told me to discipline her. He said he couldn't be there always or drive to my house every time she needed to be disciplined, because her mom wasn't going to do it. Now, see, look, this is a very healthy relationship. I think it doesn't get any better than that, as far as I'm concerned. I had a client a little while ago, and he was actually contemplating divorcing his wife.
Oh wow!
And they have children together, small children, daughters. And he was concerned about the welfare of his children once he left. And I told him, I said, well, ultimately, first of all, I do believe in staying together for the children. I do, especially when they're 3, 4, and 5 years old. I believe in staying together for the children. They didn't ask to be here, and the best possible outcome for them, the best scenario for them, is to have both of their parents particularly loving on them throughout their development. So now, again, that's not in extremely toxic situations. Some situations are just untenable, right? If you throwing stuff at each other, breaking dishes, beating on each other, that's different. But I'm talking about if I just don't like you and I want to go and live my best life and be free of you, or you just want, no, that's childish to me and that's selfish.
Yeah.
So I believe in staying together for the sake of the children, even if it just means that we can just be friends. Just to show them that at least mom and dad are cordial and respectful toward each other. But ultimately, our vested interest is in the well-being of the children. Right.
Right.
So I said all that to say, he was asking me about that situation. And so what I'm saying to him is, look, you're with a young lady who's very nice looking. And the chances of her remaining single throughout the upbringing of your daughters is not very likely. Now, whether or not a man comes to stay or whether he just want to, smash and dash, that's a different conversation. But she's not going to be alone.
Right.
And then you also have to wonder, are these dudes just here for her? Or are there some creeps who might be here for my daughters too? So in that scenario, I'm just thinking at the best possible place. If you're so concerned about the protection of your daughters, then stay there and be with them. And
protect them. Absolutely. And if you're not going to stay there and protect them, then don't complain that, that you don't want any guy over them. Because I've heard that before. I don't want no internet over my kids. Well, then you should have stayed there. You should have did what you needed to do and not be selfish for the betterment of the kids. Again, like you said, if there's abuse happening, no violence is there. Like his first lady says here, if there's no violence, raise those children together. Yep. Because you will turn them out to be healthy children. Healthy adults. We got to get to the place where when we get that, oh, I'm pregnant, you showing the little thing, babe, look, I'm pregnant. Okay, guess what? From that moment on, we're not raising babies. We're raising adults. Oh, wow. We're pregnant with an adult.
Yeah.
And how do you get to making sure that adult is healthy? How do you make sure that you get to that adult being better for their mate? Because that's what you're really doing. You get to put new clothes on them and rock them and goo goo gaga, all that beautiful things when they're small, but they don't stay small that long. No. They stay small for a very short time. They start growing very quickly and they become young adults very quickly. So those are the things that we have to start to think about. How do I create a healthy, sound-minded adult that's going to be healthy and sound-minded with another adult?
Yep. Ultimately, you're raising them for somebody else.
That's it.
Of course, you want them to carry the torch. You want them to carry the legacy and all of that. But the goal is for them, look, I say this all the time. If experts have theorized that as much as 95% of our overall happiness can be attributed to how well we do in our intimate relationships, right? So if I want my child to be happy as an adult, then the best chance to give them toward that happiness is to raise them so that they can coexist peaceably, cooperatively, harmoniously in a relationship with someone, particularly preferably of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So if I'm not raising my son so that he can be a husband who raises healthy minded children, then what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Right. And the same thing with my daughters. They ultimately they're going to be somebody's mother and somebody's wife. Right. That's the goal.
Which is like, I think I posted something earlier today on my Facebook page in regards to why do you have fathers that are like, oh, you can't date until you're 30, or women that say, son, you can't date because you have not put your best foot forward when you're doing that. Because this is the thing. What are you afraid of? Because if you put out in the world the best of you, rather than taking from other people, then you shouldn't be worried about what somebody else is going to do, because your children are going to reap what you sowed.
Yeah.
They're not going to reap what other people sowed. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's not bad situations that happen to good people. I am simply saying that if you raise your kid well, and you know that you've instilled in them the best thing, their chances of hitting the wall too many times is going to be very slim, because they're going to be able to make great decisions. And that's really the thing. And like here, Yarley says, I agree to the point Vaun stand for the kids, but children will perceive that their parents do not love each other. This causes anxiety within them because they will know their parent is not happy. The problem with that is this, Yarley, is that if you are not being selfish, you're going to make sure that you are showing happiness. You are looking to the betterment of those children. You're not walking around going, oh, I can't stand you. I'm only here for them kids. No, you're going to be looking at your children, looking at their other half, because as you don't like that parent, you don't like half of that child. Every time you say something bad to your son's mother or your daughter's mother or your son's father and your daughter's father, every time you say something bad to them, what you've done is you've now cut that child in half and you've talked about half of that child. And if you want to walk around pulling on that child like there's some rag doll, constantly pulling at them, tearing them away because you are decided to keep saying things bad about their parent, that's exactly what you're doing. So you got to make a sacrifice. I'm sorry.
No, you good. I interrupted you. My fault. There's an interview between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with that. I'm sure some of you are. So they're sitting down there having a discussion about the relationships between men and women. I think I'm gonna put it in the chat for after the show. But they're sitting there and he's saying, long short of it is, she's saying we owe it to the children to at least fake it until they get to an age where they're self-sufficient. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I can't fake it. She said, well, you got to. You fake it every day for them crackers down at your job. Excuse me, that's her language, right? But she said, you fake it every day. The boss man don't know that you're unhappy with him because you put on a smile every day. You put your best foot forward. You put on your best presentation for him at work, but then you come home and we catch hell because you don't care enough to fake it for us. And I'm saying I'm in alignment with her. Fake it for the children because there's nothing more important than their well-being, or I should say few things more important than instilling enough in them to ensure that they turn out with a healthy perspective on life. And if that means that doesn't mean you have to necessarily be kissing each other and all lovey-dovey, right. But if you can't at least be respectful in each other's presence and cordial in each other's presence and at least show some genuine concern, because look, at the end of the day, if I don't care about my child's mother, then I don't care enough about my children.
Come on. That's it. You really don't. Every time you badmouth them, you're badmouth. And I had to tell one of my clients, I said, I want you to do this. I want you to put the face of your child on the mother or the father. Every time you badmouth, cuss them out, say things derogatory to them, that's exactly what you're doing to your kid. Mm-hmm. And they sat back and was like, wow, I never thought of that. And so from that point on, they've been very careful about the things they say to each other. Because this is the thing. We have been purposed to come here to be fruitful and multiply. All of the other extracurricular things that we get to do, have sex and love on each other and feel good, those are the rewards to us being fruitful and multiplying. In the fruit, in order to multiply the fruit, you must take care of the fruit, just like it is a harvest. If you went out to the harvest, you looked at it and go, yeah, it grew, but whatever, I'm done. Then you have failed being the farmer. You failed. But if you go out there, you got to meticulously care for that. You got to make sure that the ground is fertile. You got to make sure that it's not hardened. And you're hardening the ground every time you speak vulgarly or bad about that other parent. Mm-hmm. You got to stop it. And oh my God, I had a situation with a client who decided that they were going to keep their kid from the other parent, all because they didn't get along. You're totally 1000% wrong. And you need to go back and check yourself if you ever do that, because that is something that is harming that kid. And then to put that kid in the middle of it to say, hey, my God, what do you think about this? Never. You don't ever do that, because you're harming half that kid. And that kid's going to grow up with low self-esteem issues, low quality issues, not knowing who they are, and what their self-value is.
Look, you got a comment right there from Brother Gabe. He says, I work closely with an LCSW. I'm guessing that's child services, maybe?
Yes, a social worker.
Social work, okay. I work closely with an LCSW, and we ran this program working with kids. She often noted that research says it's better to divorce while kids are younger, because the research says impact is worse when they're older. So look, I will say this: if you are going to get a divorce, if it's inevitable, there's no way around it, then yeah, I would say it probably is better that to do it when they're younger. What I'm also saying though is, if it's avoidable, look, we don't put enough effort into not getting the divorce, is what I'm saying. We don't work. I think we don't work hard enough to fight against divorce. And if you're going to get a divorce, if it's inevitable, yes, I agree with that 100%, Gabe. But I'm saying I think a much stronger effort should be put toward not getting the divorce in the first place. And if we can at least be cordial, at least be pleasant to each other for the benefit of the children, right? Because nobody is going, look, if my child is my legacy, nobody is going to protect that legacy better than me.
Better. So
if I step away from that and then some other man comes in and he's harming my children, abusing my children, or even just disregarding them, maybe he's just indifferent, like, hey, they ain't mine, it is what it is. That creates a much greater challenge for my legacy to thrive. And so I think one of the most irresponsible things that we have done, many of us, we plant seeds as men, many of us plant seeds, and we're not as concerned with the harvest or the reaping of what we've sown. Right. And so what ultimately ends up happening is we grow older and we're not nearly as concerned with, we've been given this red herring. I talked about this on one of my threads today, and everybody's trying to get the bag. Everybody's talking about living in their purpose. Everybody's trying to live their best life, not realizing that the very reason that we are here, or one of the primary reasons that we are here, is to ensure a legacy lives on through us. If I don't see my child and then ultimately grandchildren and even great grandchildren, then it dies at me. It stops at me. Yeah. What the hell am I here for? So I can get some red bottom boots and some, come on, man, a Benz, a Jag, a nice house. Come on, man. It's got to be something more to it than that. And I'm saying that the preservation of that legacy, to make sure that it lives on and thrives as healthily as it possibly can, that is my primary purpose in life.
It is. And we, like you said, we put more value on the bag and the coin as a people than we do on the value of making sure that the people that come after us can enjoy the coin or the bag. And if we keep doing that, nobody's going to be able to enjoy the coin or the bag, because you're going to just get into this purpose. Oh, I'm just out for myself. Like I just found out what's the name of that? What's that acronym?
Oh, MGTOW, MGTOW.
I had no idea about this whole movement. I knew that there was a movement. I didn't know that they had called it a name, right?
It stands for men going their own way.
You go your own way. And then once you get there, what you got? You have nothing, because now you're going to get to the point where now you're older. Now you've gotten the bag. Now you're looking at women and thinking, does she want me for me, or does she want me for what I have? Right. So then you're going to have problems trying to procreate, and you're going to not trust the woman that you need to procreate with in order to get that legacy going. It is not we are not designed to get the bag. We're designed to create. And in that creating, we have to create the family to keep the creation going. You teach your kids how to fish. You don't go give them fish. And getting the bag is so that you can lessen the responsibility of parenting, so that you can just go buy them things and just give them things. And, oh, they got better than the kid down the street. No, but how much of the parent do they have?
I don't think there's anything wrong with getting the bag, getting your paper, but it should not take priority over the other things that you just named.
Yeah.
No,
and that's the thing.
His first lady said sounds gay.
I thought the same thing as first lady. I'm like, either these men are gay or they are completely hurt.
And I think, for the most part, it stems from a place of hurt, resentment, and frustration due to lack of success with women. And so these dudes, many of them have decided that, they're going their own way, which means the opposite direction of women. They want to, and it's cloaked in self-betterment and, being on your purpose and different things like that. And I understand that, look, I think it's imperative that a man gets himself together before he selects a woman. I think that's important. But at 35 and 40 and 45 years old, come on, man, you should have it together before then.
Yeah. And if you don't have, I've been saying this, that the Bible says that he who finds a wife finds a good thing. Now, every woman ain't good. So we got to find the good thing, right?
Just because you marry her don't mean she a wife.
Don't mean she a wife, right? Finds a good thing and obtains favor upon the Lord. Now, would you rather work hard or would you rather work with favor? Because with favor, that means you're going to be able to walk into some things and things just happen. With working hard is the curse that was placed on man, that's going to till the ground and have to get in the ground. And tilling the ground is like doing this. But favor is like, that just slipped on right through.
Look, I got a client and she was just telling me today that her husband works. She's a stay-at-home mom. She stays at home with the children. And she's at home grinding, hustling. She comes up with all these ideas and she started several businesses. But one of her primary goals is to start a business that thrives so great that her husband no longer has to go out and work.
See,
but rather that he can come home and be with the family and they can produce from home doing their own thing. And I'm saying, damn, if that ain't a help meet, I don't know what is. Right. And my wife has always been on the same thing. So I think oftentimes what we've gotten confused, see, there's nothing wrong with wanting a nice looking woman. Right. Every man, look, my wife is lovely to look at. Nobody wants a woman that's not easy on the eyes.
Right.
But I think what we've confused is getting the dime, right? The woman who's easy on the eyes versus one who makes life easier.
There you go.
Right. And we confuse the two. And sometimes the woman who will make life easier, you might have to take a couple points down. Maybe she's a 7. Hell, maybe she's a 6 or a 5.5. But I would rather have a 5 who gives me 10 over a dime that gives me a half-ass effort any day.
Come on now, come through. Because then you're trying to figure out how you're going. Then that's when you get to that place where you're trying to figure out, how do we now bring this family together? Because you're too busy being selfish and not thinking about the family as a whole.
Hey, we had a big question that kind of sparked this whole conversation, and it was what happens in the blended family? Is it natural? How did I ask that question? Is it natural for the biological parent to love their own child more than the children that are produced jointly in the relationship?
Now, I think it's natural. I understand what you're saying. I think it's natural because of the bonding that happens with the oxytocin, the bonding things that go on in the body of the woman who carried that child. So it's natural, but I don't think that child cannot be loved. You cannot love the new baby in the same way that you love. Now, I also am one of the people that say that there's going to be differences in how you love even your own children, because there's going to be things about them. Oh, not that you don't love them, but you're going to have a different relationship with each of your children. And that could come across as, oh, you love so more than you love me, or no, I just think that this child is more responsible and I got to handheld this child a little bit more. And you know what? I know this child is a little rambunctious, but this child is real quiet, so the differences in those children, and you have to love them. That's really what that is. You're loving them in the manner in which they need to be loved. That's the love that they need, not loving them in a blanket way.
So, family, what say you? Do you think it's normal to love your own biological child? So let's say I entered this relationship and I'm bringing a child into the relationship. I have a daughter from a previous relationship and I marry my wife, and maybe she even has a child. And then we produce a child together. So there's 3 children, right? I have a child, she has a child from a previous relationship, and then we produce one together. Is it natural to love my own child that I brought into the relationship and the child that we produced together more than the one that she brought into the relationship, and vice versa? That's the question.
His first lady says, yes, we even have to learn how to love ourselves and other children after birthing a child. So, I mean, it's so many dynamics that happen with a woman when she has that child. So the love may take a little more labor, but the child should receive the proper love no matter the cost.
Yeah.
That's just really it. So I think that it's possible. It's kind of like when we had the whole thing, unconditional love. It's possible. It is very 100% possible. Do people do it? They don't do it because, again, like she said, we got to learn how to love ourselves first. And many people don't even know how to love themselves first in order to love those children the way they need to. They're jealous. They come in the door jealous. The baby, my baby sister, my father, when we were kids, my father couldn't dart the door. She was 2-3 years old. He couldn't dart the door without her, at his leg, clamoring over him. And every time he walked out the door, I'm sure there was something. Well, we did have a woman who was looking at us side-eye because my father loved us so much, but I'm the product of a blended family. I'm the oldest of 7. And I always said the 7 in the blended family, but I don't call them step anything. They're my sisters and they're my brother. And so that's what we do. We don't do that whole step thing. We are family. I call my stepmother Ma. That's who she is. That's who she's going to always be. I'm not going to ever. The only reason why I would ever say that is to get people to understand, because they hear, you said that your mother died. Well, okay, stepmother, so that people could understand the dynamics. But I'll never call her stepmom.
Yeah. I think it is natural and even normal. Look, here's I'm going to read one of the comments, one of the better comments that responded to the post. So the post that I put up was from a client who was concerned that the fiance loved his own child more than the child that loved the child that they produced together more than the child that was brought into the relationship. And so one of the responses was, it's a fact that a parent doesn't equally like or love their own biological children that they're raising. I think as long as the differences aren't gargantuan and no child is being harmed or denied the development of their potential to the parent's greatest ability, our society should mature and stop this unrealistic expectation that parents will love all children equally.
Yeah, you can't do that. You're not going to do it.
Yeah, look,
we're different people.
Even of your own biological children, it's common to like some more than you like the others.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're going to do any more for one necessarily than you would for the other, or that you're not going to still afford all of them the same opportunity. But there are personality, challenges sometimes, and it just is what it is. And so, hell, you could end up. It wouldn't surprise me to see a scenario where you like the stepchild more than you might even like your own child. Doesn't mean that you're going to not do for your own child, but I think it is very natural to be partial to your own child than the stepchild. But to the point that the poster on my thread said, as long as no child is being deprived and mistreated, it's all good.
Yeah. And again, it goes to we talking about the chemical things that are happening within the bodies of the child. The parents automatically are going to bond those people together. Now, what happens is the reason why those bonds are broken is because life happens, right? People make decisions that they're going to allow the life to overcome the chemistry that has happened between these people. And so in that, then yes, you're going to see that. But that doesn't mean that it is done something's done on purpose, or you purposely love them more, because they say that there's 4 reasons why there's an issue. The 4 main reasons and issues for blended families is sibling rivalry, lack of bonding, discipline, and giving the kids attention over one or another. All of those things can really be rectified. You just got to know how to do it. And if you don't know how to do it, you find somebody such as myself or Coach Vaun or both of us to be able to help you do that, because there's ways around it. And a lot of times people are just feel like, I'm just going to do this myself. I can raise my kids myself, because, but if it's not working, get some help. Because you're responsible for those children becoming adults. And if you think that you're doing it and you're just so prideful and egotistical that you can do it yourself, and then you raise them and now they're adults and they're messed up, then it's your fault.
And look, I think we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that it's not natural. The blended family is not a natural phenomenon. It's a plan B.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a way to kind of shore up, a ship that had a leak in it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's a response to something that went wrong. And this is going to the best of our ability, we're going to get the things going, keep the things going in the right direction. But it's not a natural, even though it has become normal, it's not the most natural scenario. The most natural scenario is to have both parents with their own children.
Absolutely. Robert Lee says, if one parent believes in spanking and the other one doesn't, should this be a deal breaker for marriage? What say you, brother?
Ooh, good one. It can be. It definitely can be. Especially if somebody feels very strong against spanking. Not so much for spanking, because, if one person says, I believe in spanking, and then the other one is indifferent, like, I don't necessarily believe in spanking, but I'm not going to give you a hard time for it. That's one thing. But if you have a parent who's dead set against spanking, and then the other one is dead set for spanking, then that's likely going to be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
In many scenarios.
It will be.
Yeah, it's going to definitely.
I think that one of the things that this is part of that work that has to be done, the extra work. I think that it needs to be discussed. Why do you feel so so strong about spanking? Or why do you feel so strong about not spanking? Many times we do things because our mamas did it and our daddies did it and our grandmamas did it, and we have no idea why we're doing it. Like I posted some weeks ago. So we got beat as slaves because they hated us, and we beat our kids because we love them. And I spanked my son, but I didn't with my daughter because I felt some kind of way like this ain't working. So you got to find out, first of all, why that party feels the way that they feel. And you might get to the point where, I don't know, I just do it because the Bible says spoil it. What is it? What's the word?
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Spare the rod, spoil the child. And so if it's a spare the rod, spoil the child, okay, so it's a whole bunch of things in the Bible you ain't doing.
Hey, look, realistically too, I think most of the time when we're spanking our children, it's because we've reached a level of frustration with not being able to get the results that we're looking for. And then the spanking ends up being an outlet through which we express that frustration. Not necessarily that it's the most constructive outlet, but it's the outlet that we choose because we're so frustrated. We had it up to here, and you know what? You about to get this work, right? But I think, though, one of the challenges of parenting, you're supposed to be able to outsmart your child.
Right.
And the spanking oftentimes ends up being our admission that we can't outsmart them, so we're going to beat them into submission.
Like you gonna do? Come here.
You gonna get this?
Like you gonna do what I told you to do? I don't care, and that's the truth. Robert Lee says one of the things that I tell men is that you need to observe or pay attention to the level of respect that a woman's children has for her before you commit to a long-term relationship that will lead into marriage. What do you think? I totally agree.
Yeah, and now keep in mind too that. Children's level, look, there are some moms who command a greater level of respect, whereas some moms are a lot easier on their children, right? Yeah. So my wife, for instance, I always use my wife as these examples. My wife is very loving and all of that good stuff. She's the baby whisperer, right? All the children, even strange children that she's never met, they all love her. But she's very firm. She's a very no-nonsense person. And so they don't really try her the way that they would try my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that to say, even in some of the healthier, I think, relationships where some moms are just a little bit more nurturing and quote unquote loving, and therefore more lenient than others. But when a man shows up, right, it hits different.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean you don't even have to spank, just the bass in your voice.
Yeah.
Commands a level of respect from children that the mother has a hard time sometimes getting. So one of the things that my daughter does with my grandson, because my grandson sometimes he's hell on wheels, right? And so my daughter will say, you know what, I'm gonna call granddaddy, and he'd be like, no. So she'll put him on FaceTime, and all I gotta do is get on FaceTime and say, Noah, that's enough, son. And that's it.
That's it.
I ain't gotta yell at him. You know, I ain't got to call him no names. I ain't got to holler, cuss him out. None of that. Noah, that's enough, son.
Yeah.
Okay, granddaddy.
Yep.
That's it.
And
So,
that's why women yell, because we're trying to mimic that.
yeah.
And so the men get, why are you yelling? Because we're trying to mimic, and people don't pay attention to that. We're trying to mimic that bass, that sound that would come from that man in the yelling.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that as a young father. By the time I was 23, I think all 4 of my children were born. And I just didn't realize the gravity of the firmness that a man brings to the table just in his resolve, just in his presence, that you don't have to do all that spanking. And now, look, I'm raised by a single mom, and that's the way she handled business. She spanked us. Look, there was a time where I was getting my ass whooped every day.
Yeah.
But as a man, and so I brought that into my parenting style, not necessarily every day, but that was how I knew how to handle business. It wasn't until later that I learned that sometimes all you got to do is lean in with a little bit of bass in your voice and say, that's enough.
That's it.
And you'd be surprised that, especially when children are young, 3, 4, 5, my grandson is 5. And you'd be surprised how far that goes with children.
Yeah, it does go. And that's why we need the man in the household. There has to be that balance. You know, you have to have that nurturing, you have to have that firmness. And when that woman, that goes back to what we talked about the woman and having to bring her alpha out, right? When she has to do things circumstantially, then that's when she's trying to be something that she's not designed to be. She's not designed to walk around in her masculine energy, but when it's necessary, she knows how to bring it out. The problem is that many women haven't learned how to put it back.
And, and oftentimes there are a lot of women who don't have the luxury of putting it back.
That's true. You're absolutely right. I totally agree. Clayton says, parenting doesn't come with a handbook. Well, it does. We just don't follow it. I mean, it does. We just don't follow it. But again, that then goes by what your belief system is. If you don't believe in the Bible, then, because it tells us clearly in Proverbs what to do with our children, how to raise them and raise them well. We have to get to the place where we know what our standards are, know what we want in our families before we say I do, before we have those children. I have my clients to do mission statements. You do a mission statement for your household and you put it where everybody can see it. Then you teach your children what that mission statement means so that they can adhere to it. It's writing the vision and making it plain so that they that read it shall be able to run with it. So then if everybody's on one accord, then we understand that when mommy, daddy says something, that this is why. Because a lot of times we just go, we do what we were taught, like you said earlier. We do it because, listen, you just do what I told you because I said so. Give the explanation. I got to the point when my daughter had starting to become a teenager. I started letting them express themselves. And I gave them some hallway passes a couple of times. Just say whatever you want to, however you want to do it. And some things came out their mouths. I was like, ooh, I can't say nothing. Ooh, Lord, I can't say nothing. Because I gave a hall pass. But I really wanted to know what they really felt. But at the end of the day, I always tell them, let me tell you something. It's not how you say things. It's not what you say, it's how you say them. And I will not be disrespected by any means necessary from anybody that I carried in my stomach.
Yeah.
You know,
Nobody, period. Whether I carried you or not, I ain't carried nobody in my belly, but you ain't disrespecting me.
No disrespect. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Yarley says, no one wants spoiled, ungrateful, disrespectful children. Proper, loving, firm, instructional, tactile influencing is necessary, along with the deeply manly, authoritative bass tone of the man to keep them straight. Breathe.
Hey, look, Chris Rock did this skit some years ago, and he said, you know what? No matter what a woman says to her child, there's nothing more powerful than, I'm going to tell you, daddy.
Yeah.
Right? That's the one thing that children do not want to hear. Wait till your father gets home.
Mm-hmm.
That's a game changer. Okay,
Yeah.
mama, I'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so this is why it's imperative. Like, I think there are so many people who are ready to, in their mind anyway, they think they're ready to produce children, but not yet ready to be a husband or a wife.
Right.
And that's insane.
Right.
That you think you're ready to be a parent, but not yet ready to be a husband or a wife. That's crazy as hell, but that's common, unfortunately.
It is.
And so oftentimes we don't have the luxury of, our women don't often have the luxury of, I'm gonna tell your mama. I'm gonna tell your daddy. Or in the single parent households where the father is there, the children don't have that feminine influence, that nurturing influence that children should have.
Yeah.
And this goes for sons and daughters, because as quiet as it's kept, our sons need that feminine nurturing influence on them as much as our daughters need that masculine guide rail that we provide.
Yeah. So that they can understand that it is okay for them to cry, that they're not sissies because they cry. Because then again, that raising up that boy to be somebody's husband, when they cannot attach themselves emotionally to that wife, then they're going to go through some things that are not necessary, because the things that we have been taught as children in our communities are the wrong things to tell. And so it just makes a bigger mess. You know, I was telling my son, I remember the very first day, maybe about 7 years ago, when I realized that I was telling my son the wrong thing. My son is 30, will be 30 this year. And 7 years ago at 23, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, what was I doing? But I used to tell him, boy, stop crying. Only girls cry. You know, and then he became this stoic person where he was showing no emotion, and his wife went through some stuff because of that. You know, and I was like, oh, I had to go back and apologize to my kids so much. Because single mother, oh, I'm sorry for that. Oh, I'm sorry for that. Oh, I'm sorry for that. Because we have to understand that, we think that it doesn't come with the book. You know, but when we sit our children down, we first learn how. And I want to talk about what you said about them thinking that they're ready to have babies, but not ready to be a husband. How about this? You thinking you're ready to have sex when it's a possibility to become a parent that you don't want to have. And then you don't want to be a husband or wife. So all of these decisions start with that. Are you going to lay with somebody? I told my son and my daughter this: don't lay with people that you cannot see yourself being with for a lifetime. If you start to think that way, then you will understand the dynamics of that situation. Yeah.
You know, even to make it, I think, a little bit more tangible, one of the ways that I like to communicate that is, don't lay with someone who you can't envision being absolutely ecstatic about them being the mother or father of your child. Because at some point you're going to say, you know what, you remind me of your mama, or you remind me of your daddy. And if the thought of that doesn't make you happy, then you shouldn't be laying with them.
Shouldn't be laying with them.
You got a couple comments there.
Look, so he says it's different when a woman says stop crying and a man says it. What's the difference? Because I think that neither parent should say that. The parent should allow that child to get out their emotions and deal with those emotions. Why are you crying, son? What is your frustration, son? What are you feeling, son? Not stop crying. Because stop crying says eradicate the emotion. It's not important. But when you start to discuss that emotion with that child, son, what's going on? What's happening in your head? What's happening in your heart? Why do you feel this way? What made you feel this way? Now you're teaching that child to master that emotion so they can figure out what happened, what triggered that, what is going on, so that I can help you deal with that. And until you deal with that, you don't stuff it up under a rug. If you do that, now you're walking around with kids that don't know how to deal with their emotions, and now become adults that don't know how to deal with their emotions, and they're a mess.
Clayton Cox Sr. says a couple comments above that. He says, allowing a child his or her voice gives their esteem a boost of courage needed to voice in the world. And
absolutely.
Then right below that, Cree says, yeah, children have an innate fear of men that they just don't have of women, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, etc. Children innately know that daddy might kill them. While no matter how much mama screams, they know their life is not in danger. It's a good point.
It is. Oh. Look, I had got to the point that I needed my kids to have the fear of God when they saw me, right? I needed them. So I knew that my daughter was very, and you can call it manipulation, call it what you want. I needed to rein my household in. So I would tell my daughter, where's that Bible? Where the word? I'm telling God. Oh, she was snap into place. My son, I had to walk past his room. This is crazy what I did. One night it was 2:00 in the morning, and I walked past his room. I walked past it again. I did it about 10 times. And then beat it, and just went in there and beat the mess out of him, because he was giving me so many problems. And I had to make him think I was crazy. And that is not the way that you treat and train your children. But because I was desperate for reigning in my family, because I did not have the male in the household, I was desperate. And you will do desperate things, and that's not how you raise kids. I'm telling you, I had to apologize for a whole bunch of stuff.
Look, my grandsons, two of my grandsons spent the night here last night. And they woke up this morning, and the 3-year-old peed in the bed. And he woke up crying. I mean, he was just sobbing. And so I came in, I said, hey, man, what's wrong? And he's explaining to me that he peed in the bed, and he's just tore up about it. Now, I determined that he had cried enough. So I said, okay, that's enough. You don't have to cry for that. Right. And I think that women tend to be more patient with that type of thing, especially with male children, than men are with male children. Because men, I think, have a much shorter tolerance for male children doing what we consider an excessive amount of crying. And I think that's to the point that Akachi just made. He said a man can teach a son to battle through emotion. A woman saying it's emasculating. And again, I think there is a fine line between belittling or berating your male child for crying. Look, we all want sons who are firm and strong and tough and so on. But there is a line, and sometimes we flirt with going too far. But even again, this morning, like I said, I told him, I heard him out. He cried enough in my mind. That's enough. You don't have to cry for that. And he, okay, granddaddy. And he buttoned it up, and I would do it again.
Now, let me ask you this, though, because he says a man can teach a son to battle through emotion. If a man doesn't know how to deal with his own emotion, how can he teach that son to deal with his own emotion?
The first time I read that, I don't think I read it right. Let me say this, now that you reiterate it. There is a such thing as battling through emotion, but there's also a such thing as suppressing emotion. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes the suppression of emotion ends up being more catastrophic than dealing with the emotion in a healthy way. So one of the things that we teach in this society, or that's encouraged and promoted in this society, is that if a man cries, that he's soft.
Yep.
Right? If he cries, he's a punk. And or if a man is sensitive, that he's a punk. Even if oh man, you in love with her? You love that girl? Oh man, you weak, right? So there are some very unhealthy ideas that are pushed in this society as it pertains to what real masculinity or healthy masculinity is.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, to his point, there is a such thing as battling through emotion, and I think that's important. But at the same time, we also have to be real about what we're dealing with and learn how to face that in a healthy way. What do you think about that?
I think that I absolutely agree. The thing is that I think that there has to be, like you said, you dealt with it, you asked some questions, and then you let him know, okay, we don't have to cry about that. I think that was a great way of handling that, because he now knows in his little child mind, okay, so this happened and that happened, but it doesn't warrant me to cry about it.
Yeah.
So that's what I saw, because, some things you need to cry and cleanse from. Some things you cry because out of frustration that you don't know what else to do. But once you learn how and teach that child how to process, and I always talk about it being a star, how to stop, think, assess, respond, and not react. Once you teach that child how to stop, think about what's happening, assess what's happening, and then respond rather than react in emotion, they're learning how to master their emotion. There's nothing wrong with the emotion. It's just learning how to master it so that it fits the situation. And that's what I heard you say. You're letting him know that, okay, I get you. The crying doesn't fit that situation.
Yeah, not excessively anyway. Yeah. I mean, keeping in mind, keeping in context, he's 3.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a little of that, but then there's a learning curve. Like you said, you don't have to cry for that. And so next time he can maybe he'll come to me and he'll say, hey, granddaddy, I peed in the bed. And I say, okay, well, let's get it cleaned up.
Yeah. And then even learn how to say, you know what, granddaddy, I peed in the bed, and that makes me feel bad. Because the thing is, we have not taught our children how to verbalize what they're feeling. We've taught them to suppress it. Kids are to be seen and not heard. Stop talking about that. Don't tell me what you think. It's not about what you think. It's about what I said. We've taught them not to express their emotions and use their words. But it's him saying, because apparently he doesn't feel good about that. He doesn't feel good that he's wet his pants. It makes him embarrassed or something else. If he learns how to do that, now he doesn't have, because crying is simply an outward burst of, I don't know what else to say. And either I'm angry or I'm sad. And I don't know how to put emotions or words to this emotion. So I'm going to cry. That's really what it is. But if you learn how to use your words, then you do it.
Let me read a couple of these comments. At the top, my wife said, people spend more time. Okay, that was on the previous topic. People spend more time choosing shoes, homes, and cars than they do who they're going to have children with.
Yeah, got to do better than that.
Yardley says, men are built. Stop crying gets the emotions out of the way so that the boy can now hear the wisdom to overcome the obstacles. That's true. It's true to that. His first lady says, yes, I was raised the same way. Get the emotions out of the way so you can get that truth. Crying gets nothing done, but gets the tissues ready.
It gets something done. It's cleansing.
Akachi says, laughing my ass off. Nah, that's a flag. I think he was talking. Men don't express emotions like that was his next comment. And I think he was talking about when you were saying, well, I feel this way or I feel that way. And typically men don't think or process our emotions that way. We might say things like, well, I think this, or this is what I thought about that. Women are the ones who typically now say that I feel much more than I think. What are your thoughts on that? That's the narrative.
I'm gonna go to the word always. We were born into sin. And that sin is anything that's going to keep us out of alignment with the Most High.
Okay.
That's what that is. Okay. We think of sin as fornication, killing people. Anything that keeps you out of the alignment of the Most High is sin. We were born into sin and shaped into iniquity. We were shaped to be who we're going to be. You can shape your son to verbalize his emotions. But see, the problem is society says when he does that, he's a punk.
No. I'm not talking about verbalizing emotions. I'm talking about the way that he verbalizes emotions.
But that's what I'm saying. You can teach your children to do that, but we have not done that. We teach them what we know. But if you want your child to be emotionally fit, okay, emotionally healthy, you teach your child how to verbalize, male or female, how to verbalize what they're feeling by asking them questions, peeling back the onion. And you said that men don't have the patience. You're right. But if they start thinking, you know what, I need to have the patience to peel back this onion because I'm raising my son or my daughters, especially my son, to become somebody else's husband. And they need to be able to peel back that onion.
So here's the beauty and the benefit of having a 2-parent household.
There you go.
Right? Because when mama comes across that same scenario, she's going to say, oh, baby, that's okay. She's going to pick him up. She's going to put him on her shoulder and she's going to pat him and he's going to get a few more tears out. Right. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to probably cry a little bit longer when mama comes and deals with it. Yeah, when daddy comes, daddy gives that other side of it, like, that ain't nothing to cry about, boy. You know, and we're going to get past it in the way that we get past it. What I'm saying is this. They're going to, I think that somebody made that comment that women want men to express, or how do you say, men don't express emotions like that because they see women crying about almost everything.
I agree, Yarly. When a woman is always crying, it does confuse y'all.
Yeah, and then it was another one.
Because they use it to manipulate. That's why.
Akachi said, we shouldn't teach our boys to express emotions like women. Men have a different role. Men broadcasting vulnerabilities hinders the role. So, I think, look, there I go again. I think this, I think that. And when you say things, you say, well, I feel like, and I think, here I go.
I say both because I'm a thinker and a feeler.
No, you're a feeler. Listen.
No.
No, the point that I'm making is this. There is room for us to be who we are and to operate in our element. And so if I'm talking to my grandchild and I'm teaching him in the way that I'm going to teach him, he's going to hear I think this, I think that. This is how I thought about X, Y, Z. Right. If my wife is talking to him, he's going to get the feel, the balance, the balanced version of processing that same level of emotion, right? So here's the point. That balanced upbringing will ultimately allow a child to lean to or gravitate toward whatever side that is most dominant or prominent in them. Masculine leaning will tend more men, the masculine child, to process emotions in ways where he says, well, I think this. And I think the feminine side will gravitate, will encourage, or will have the female child lean more in the direction of saying, well, I feel this. And neither one is wrong. It's just the way that we process or express our emotions. Let's say you got a few more comments.
I believe that. I think that I smoke a bag of that if I smoked. Yeah. I think that the problem is that we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from dysfunction that we have to eradicate and get back on track. And so we can say that for the benefit of those who don't have that. But for the ones who are in the situation where they have a his, hers, and ours, now they have children that have already been in the family. So how do we help them in these blended families now teach their children the balance of the emotions and why they're necessary? Because it's not that this is a thing. We try to eradicate the emotion when it comes to men, but if it weren't necessary, there would not be emotion. Because the word says that let's create them in our image. So if we're created in the image of the Most High, then if he didn't want us to have emotions, he would have eradicated it.
Yeah.
We need them. They're beneficial in many different situations, both for male and female. We just have to learn how to master them so that they work for us and not against us.
look, I say it all the time. Emotions make great servants, but horrible masters.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think, there I go again, right? We tend to, I think with where we are right now in society, we tend to minimize. There is an effort, not I don't know what the percentage is, but there is an effort to minimize the way men emote.
Yeah.
Right? Because we say things, we process by saying, I think thus and so, right? And so and we have to get to a place, particularly women have to get to a place where you understand that that's how men get down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the same token, men have to have a similar level of appreciation for the way women express.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always this, there's profit in our dysfunction, and there are people who are constantly sowing seeds of discord between us, right? And so we have people who are capitalizing on making sure that we don't realize the value in each other's contribution, the complementary aspect of what my wife brings, the complementary aspect of her seeing what I bring. And so you have people out here saying things like, well, these different movements. You have the manosphere, and I don't know what it's called. And the manosphere is this, part of it is MGTOW. There's also the red pill part of things, what they call the red pill. These men who feel like or think that they're more enlightened than other men, and so they've dismissed the essential value of women or the feminine principle, right? And then on the other side of that, you have women. I don't know what it's called, but there are a lot of women, particularly in our community. You have women who minimize the importance of men, right?
The Me Too movements and the independent
movement.
movement.
When it's all said and done, those of us who refuse to acknowledge the importance and the critical importance of each other's role, right? Kachi said feminism. Those of us who refuse to acknowledge the critical importance of each other's role, like not one is more important than the other. Men are no more important than women. That's nonsense. I hear that a lot. Men are no more important than women. Women are certainly no more important than men in my mind anyway. And so until we acknowledge the critical importance of each other's role, we won't be able to have nice things.
Nothing. We'll stay in this place battling each other, and our race that is only 13% of the population will die.
You got a few more comments up there. That's point right there.
So it says, if your child has went through physical, mental abuse from a parent, but your partner encourages a relationship with your child with the abuser, and also believes you and your child should get over the past abuse and current abuse of the child, is that a great partner to consider when he or she constantly dismisses the trauma that your child endured and currently is experiencing?
Wow.
I think that what has to happen is if one parent feels like the child is being abused, then now you need a third party, a mediator, a therapist, or something in that child's life with that other parent. Get somebody outside of you involved in that situation to see really what the dynamic is. Because if you're not, it's like you got to determine that it's not something that you think, but it's something that was really happening. And if that child is being abused by that other parent, get some help. But you cannot eradicate that child from that parent. That parent needs to find out what's happening. Because I promise you, let them get older. And the very first thing they're going to do when they start to get in their own mind, and that child finds out some other stuff that they didn't know, they're going to blame you for it. So never take them completely out of the family. Let them go through therapy, but don't eradicate them.
And I think it also depends on how much of a threat that parent still is. There's value certainly in what you're saying as far as the therapist and getting a third party professional opinion. But ultimately, if that other parent is still a threat, man, that's tough. That's tough. I think ultimately the well-being of the child is paramount. But that professional intervention will go a long way for sure.
It really will, because the thing is that a lot of times, especially when you have your rose-colored glasses are off about the other parent, just a simple spanking could look like, and I don't know the situation, okay? I don't know. But anything said or done could look a certain way. Find out get a third party. Get somebody in there, but don't eradicate the child or the parent, because what you're doing is you're splitting that child down the middle, and you're saying, oh, something's wrong with your mama, so something's wrong with you, half of you. And whether you really think that you're doing that and that is sticking is sticking. And you will start to see that when that child gets older and how they're responding to the opposite sex, because they're going to try to figure out how to get that piece, that void, and how to fill it.
Yeah. And then the last part of that question, he says, is that a great partner to consider when he or she dismisses the trauma that your child endured and is currently experiencing? Again, so the therapy aspect of that, Kevin Allen's comment.
Oh. Okay.
So again, that therapy aspect is important. But I think oftentimes when people on the outside looking in, they don't have as full of an understanding of what has taken place, right? And so maybe they mean well, they just don't know enough.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that they're not necessarily a good potential mate for you or a good partner for you. It just means sometimes they're speaking from a place of ignorance, not being fully informed.
Absolutely.
So
and it depends on what do you mean dismisses the trauma, because it's a difference if they're just like, oh, they ain't doing nothing to them, or if like what can you give us an example of what that dismissing looks like, so that because that can come across a lot of times. People feel like if somebody doesn't agree with them that they're being dismissive.
Yeah.
And just because that person doesn't agree doesn't mean that they're being dismissive. It just simply means that they just don't agree. And we have to get to the place where we're learning to have different perspectives and allow the different perspectives. That's what being safe in, showing empathy, allowing for different perspectives, following your heart, and elevating the positive. That's when you have safe communication. If you're not communicating in a safe zone, then it's going to be difficult for you to really be able to see each other. So can you just give, like, what does dismiss look like for you?
In the meantime, while we're waiting on him, we can go on to the next comments.
Let's see. We got yes, the balance of male and female is why I'm opposed to homosexual couples raising children. There's not the balance of male and female energy that children of both genders need. I don't want to.
I'll touch it.
Touch it, because I got a whole bunch of. It shouldn't be done at all.
Yeah. Look, she said it all. I mean, I think. Yeah, we don't even have to expound on it. I mean,
that's why I was like,
yeah, that just is what it is. I mean, look, if ultimately the goal is balanced upbringing, then there it is. You've essentially removed the balance from their upbringing. Next comment.
Right. You told them this is what you're gonna be. This is what's just okay.
Yeah. No, the only emotion from men I've ever heard anyone complain about is anger. It's okay that we cry. We get encouraged to cry and be more expressive and vulnerable. Look, I think that being vulnerable, I talk about this in my book. That was one of the things I wrote about. Being vulnerable is hard, right? It's a very uncomfortable place to be, where you give someone the ammunition to hurt you, but have faith in them that they won't, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I don't believe that your relationship can go to the deepest levels of connectedness without vulnerability.
Yes.
I don't see how, because they never really get to know who you are. You never really get to know who they are. You never really get to know what the other person is capable of, and then how far the relationship can go. That's like having, I said this last week, that's like having a Ferrari, a brand new Ferrari sitting in your driveway, and you drive it every day, but all you do is 55 miles per hour.
So I mean,
you have access to probably the greatest machine that man ever invented, but you never dive into the untapped potential that thing has, because you're afraid to press the gas pedal. You're afraid to put into it what essentially it was designed for. So
Absolutely.
I think vulnerability is an
You gotta go 200. You gotta go.
Man, look, we're going. My wife, look, my wife know everything about me. Look, she know everything about me, and I ain't scared of that. You know?
Yeah, and that's the beauty in it, though. It's like, why not want to know the insides? When you can look at your partner and you can see them from the inside out, that is the most beautiful part of the relationship when you can see that. But when you're looking at them, you're trying to figure out what's on their skin. You don't even know what the skeleton look. You gotta dive in. I'm a diver, and I'm sorry. I do not apologize for being that.
But
Which
people
is why I unconditionally love.
There you go again with that. Look, I'm not even touching that one. I ain't going back there with you, Coach. What I will say is this, though. I think what keeps us afraid, I would say, fearful of being vulnerable, making ourselves vulnerable, is that it makes us look weak when we get hurt. Right? We think many of us think it makes us look weak when we get hurt. And let's be frank. I mean, being hurt sucks. Nobody's looking forward to that. And so, but I think that the most courageous among us are willing to do, what we got to do in order to get the most we can out of this thing we call life. And if along the way we suffer some bumps and bruises, we know we can just, get yourself up, dust yourself off, and try again. And I'm not afraid of that.
Yeah.
Look, man.
I think the word vulnerable has been taken and given a bad rep because people think vulnerable, and the dictionary even says exposed to harm. And so why do you have to go into it thinking that you're going to be exposed to harm? Just being exposed to someone so that they get the opportunity to love every part of you. That's beautiful.
And not only that, I mean, look, most of the time when you find people who are afraid to be vulnerable, it's because they don't trust themselves.
Come through now.
Right?
Say it again. Say it one more time.
Well, here's what I'm saying. If I trust myself, first of all, know thyself, right? And then trust thyself, right? So if I know myself and I trust myself, then I have confidence that I chose the right person to be vulnerable with.
Yes.
Right. But when my judgment and my mind is clouded with all these piss poor experiences, right, then I don't really have the trust for myself or my decisions and the scenarios that I might find myself in. Right. Rather than the understanding that this is where I've guided myself and I have full confidence in that. And hell, even if I make a mistake, I'm going to be all right.
Gonna be all right.
Right. So there it is.
And that's the thing. Like I tell my clients all the time, if you think of making decisions this way, and some people might not agree, but this is how I look at it. You've made the right decision at that time with the information, the knowledge, and the environment that you were in. Now, will it be the right decision for 10 days from now? Maybe not. But at the moment, you made the right decision, because what that'll do is confidence comes from competence. I made the right decision. Okay, so down the road, maybe not so much. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean I'm horrible at decision making. Like I had somebody to attack me and you're horrible at decision making. No, I made the right decision at the right time when I made that decision. It may not have been the right one for another situation, but every situation, I mean, I don't care if I have the same clothes, same people, same environment. You're never going to be able to duplicate an experience ever.
Right.
And if you can't duplicate an experience, then you should not be harboring over, oh my God, that was the most horrible decision. No, okay, I made a mistake. Keep moving.
You got to. Because if you dwell on something, where thought goes, energy flows, right?
Come through.
And if you want to, you can think yourself into a state of depression.
Yeah.
If you give it enough energy. And really, and I don't want to minimize how impactful depression is, because it's a real thing, right? But most people don't understand. Most people who are battling depression don't understand that the single greatest weapon that we have against thoughts of depression is our ability to choose one thought over another.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can simply, and at the risk of sounding like I'm oversimplifying what depression really is, the reality is we take a thought and we dwell on it and we follow it and we give it so much energy that we end up in a state of depression. Nobody took us there. Nobody forced us there. We allowed our mind to travel that path. And so if I'm accurate in that, then what would making a different decision do?
Come on now.
Man,
Very
look,
good. That's good. That's good, man. I smoke I'll smoke a couple bags of that right there.
you light one for me. No,
All right.
we,
Here's Kevin's example. So the courts and therapists established that there was abuse, which custody was awarded. You tell your new partner about some of the specific details of the abuse while explaining they are quiet, unresponsive, no comments. And when they finally comment, they say maybe that person can be the best friend of the child later. And you sound controlling. Only women can raise a child. And what did you do to her to make her abuse her child? Okay. What you start with that one, brother?
Man, look, you might have to call me for that one. That sound like look.
I'll say this. Let me go ahead. You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's we covering our face, but let me just break this down. So when you tell the new partner about some of the specific details of the abuse and they are quiet, unresponsive, and no comment, maybe they just don't know what to say and they're trying to process. Okay. When they finally comment and they say maybe that the person can be the best friend of their child later, that could look dismissive. That could very well be, that can be. And then when that partner says you sound controlling, then
only a woman can raise a child. I don't know what the hell that's about.
That's not true.
And what
my father raised 3 girls. And so what did you do to her, make her abuse? So then you got to ask yourself, is that partner a person, did they go through some things themselves? And do they need to be healed from some things? So there's a lot of different dynamics, like Vaun said, that are missing that would tie in some things, because it's kind of like
let me tell you what that sounds like to me, because we could give an answer to something like that, but I think we run the risk of oversimplifying in our answering something that we don't have a full understanding of the dynamic for.
Yeah.
And real rap. I mean, I think that's something that we should probably talk offline about.
Offline. Yeah.
And we can deal with that.
Yeah.
Because
then you consider, consider something together, because again, perspectives are 85% of how you make decisions.
Yeah.
You use 85% of your perspective on how you make your decision. So if your perspective, I can ask you right now, what colors do me and Vaun have on? Somebody might say they might go to black. And then somebody might say, well, I see y'all got on green. And you know what, that's an olive green, or that's an army green, or it could be a whole bunch of things that you need to figure out. So if
most of them are probably gonna say that my outfit look better than yours, but that's okay.
And that's okay, because they're gonna say, well, she's more prettier. So then that's okay. And so
they will say that you're prettier than I am. They will say
she is fine, but so we're making light of this only because that is pretty heavy. The thing is that you really have to make sure that you're getting both perspectives in order to get sound wisdom. Sound wisdom can never be one-sided. And that's what we talk about with these gurus out here making all these one-sided comments. If it's one-sided, that's a problem. You got to get both parties involved in the situation, because I'm going to tell you something. Never make a partnering decision on who you're going to partner up with off of something that maybe you don't clearly understand, because they can look at the overall picture, because you're not going to agree with everything. You have to, do you believe that person is capable of being kind to your child? Because I'm going back to the question he asked earlier. Because he said, is that a great part to consider when he or she constantly dismisses the trauma that your child endured and currently experienced? So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of dynamics, and you got to look at the overall picture of the situation. See if that, don't key in on one situation. I know you love your child, but find if that relationship is worth the trouble of going through some coaching, counseling, or something to see if that's the case.
And nobody's going to want to be with someone who they feel is dismissive of something traumatic that happened to their child, right? So that in and of itself, like, that's his perspective. If he feels like, that she's being dismissive of the trauma that the child experienced, I mean, that alone will likely bring about the end of the relationship. So I'm saying, and this is why I said I would like to hear from, where she's coming from with that, because if somebody is really being dismissive of the trauma that the child experienced, then yeah, that's a huge red flag. Hell, that's probably 3 red flags. But I would imagine that if I heard from her perspective, she would probably say, no, this is where I was coming from with that.
Right.
And this is why we offer the both of us when it comes to coaching. Like I have my own clients, Coach Michela has her own clients, but we also offer a balanced, what we consider a balanced perspective with many. We've dealt with many clients together. Mm-hmm. So look, I don't know. I mean, if that's something that you feel like might benefit you, where all of us can get together and talk, then feel free to reach out to us, inbox us. And on that note, I think we better go, because we've been on here for over 90 minutes.
96 minutes.
I got to take my grandbaby bowling.
Yes, we got to go have some fun. Well, y'all go have some fun. I'm going to go have some fun by myself. Okay. But y'all have been wonderful. We are loving on y'all. Thank you so much for commenting. Make sure that you share this, because if you sat with us this long, that means what we were talking about was valuable. And if you believe that what we were talking about was valuable, it can be valuable to somebody else, somebody that could be on your page and you have none the wiser of the information that they need. So please share this on your page. Also, make sure that you're subscribing to all of our pages, Vaun the Love Alchemist on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and Coach Michelamonè on all those same ones as well. So and don't forget our His and Her Perspective YouTube page. Please help us get to 100 subscribers so that we can have our own URL.
We're struggling, y'all.
We're struggling. We come on now.
Some more subscribers, man.
Yeah. So
and we spitting that fire every week. We spitting
every week.
Look,
us out.
You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. And for that, we are eternally thankful, family. We love y'all. See you next week.
Hold on, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, man, where's the thing? There we go. Sorry.
My smoke. Where's my smoke? I need my smoke.